So again, you guys can see the 3 students we have today. What I want to make super clear is these students they're great, they're amazing, but everything they're going to talk about today is within reach. It's within your grasp. It really just comes down to effort, hard work, mindset, and what these guys are going to tell you about as to what you can do to land an internship, to develop a growth mindset, and to become an entrepreneur. I was thinking about it this morning, and I was putting myself in your shoes, like when I was in high school, not that long ago, but it's obviously been a few years. And the internet was really just coming into full force, where it was one of those things that, at least in where we are in North America, a lot of people were starting to really adopt it in their house. It was still AOL, so it was still like dial up, and it wasn't the speed at which we know it today, but it was just becoming more and more of a thing. And we didn't have as many amazing resources available, but we did have MSN, for anyone who remembers MSN. What I was thinking about today, though, if I was back in high school and had the internet as we know it today, the way I look at it, at least from a context of how to make the most out of your summer, there's 2 things that the internet can provide for you. It can provide a distraction, or it can provide opportunity. Distractions are everywhere on the internet, whether it's scrolling Instagram on your phone or Fortnite or whatever it is that gets you distracted, it's everywhere. But so is opportunity. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And that's what these students are going to share with you, how they have leveraged not just the internet, but the skills, the resources, and their networks to create an immense amount of opportunity, and what you guys can all do as well. Quick plug for myself before I hand it off to our amazing standout students. You guys can see the banner behind me. So for any students listening, you may not have heard about it already, but I've been telling your teachers all about it. We started a podcast a few months ago at My Blueprint called Competencies Without a Classroom. What we did is we interviewed a bunch of industry professionals asking about what are the 21st century skills? What are these core competencies that they look for when building out their 21st century teams? And what do they look like in action? Without getting into it too much, I'm not going to read off the bios for our standout students because you saw those, they're on the screen right now, but these are students who are doing some pretty special stuff. The one thing, aside from being in the GTA, that these guys have in common is they're also a part of this really amazing organization called the Knowledge Society. So I'm sure they're going to mention it here and there as they're going through. For the students who are listening and watching the recording right now, just want to give you kind of a brief introduction to what that is. So Sigil, do me a favor. If you could explain what the Knowledge Society is to a high school student who's maybe never heard of it in like 30 seconds, how would you explain the Knowledge Society to somebody?
Yeah, I view the Knowledge Society as kind of a human accelerator, in the sense that I know the founders themselves, they built it with the whole premise of like, you know, looking at the current education system and like seeing like, okay, like how can you better or like really accelerate students and young people who have a lot of potential to be able to, you know, not just solve problems, but prepare them for the real world, right? The world is changing exponentially, and there's a lot of technologies that are being developed at a pace that humans have a hard time understanding exponential. But aside from the technology part of things, I think it really trains you to really make it out in the real world. Like, how can you engineer opportunities, right? How can you then learn how to network and build your confidence, and being able to build practical skills, and not just the skills itself, but being able to show everyone that you have those skills. Like, this is so important. It's hard to learn by yourself. And I think this program has definitely been life-changing for me, and it's super helpful.
Yeah, that's amazing, Sigil. And, you know, an important point to note as well, especially for the educators and the students who are watching, TKS is it's a supplement to your traditional education, right? So these guys are all part of some of the public school boards in Ontario, and they're doing TKS on the side in addition to their regular education. So let's get a bit more granular. Arnav, there's 2 different types of programs within the Knowledge Society. There's Innovate and there's Activate. How would you kind of briefly explain the difference between the 2?
Yeah, for sure. So the first year program, Innovate, is more focused on like emerging technology. And so it's going into depth in areas like AI, quantum computing, longevity, stuff like that. And then the second year program, Activate, which is a bit more exclusive because not like everyone makes it in, even if they apply, is centered around the world's biggest problems. So doing breakdowns on problems such as, you know, extreme poverty, the water crisis, the openification crisis, child mortality crisis, and then also like the world's biggest technical problems. So the conversion rate of stem cells, the inconsistency of quantum computers, things like that. And it's really centered around figuring out the optimal solutions to these sort of like really, really huge problems that don't have any concrete solutions.
Amazing. So not only just developing real world skills like Sigil was talking about, but focusing on real world problems as well. Ammielle, let's finish up with you. So why did you apply to TKS?
Honestly, a year ago, just around this time of year as the applications were opening up, I realized that I just had so much more to give, or I was just kind of thirsty, I guess, for more of an impact, for the opportunity to surround myself with more people who thought like me, who had the ambition and the drive to make an impact and to get started as soon as possible. And so I think that's what I've been able to do this year. But yeah, I was open-minded and I was ambitious. I was ready to make a change in my life and that of others.
That's super cool. Okay. Since we all had that in common, I figured it'd be helpful to talk about it. So for any students who are watching and listening right now, definitely check it out afterwards. Actually, the application deadline is open for about another week and a bit. If any of that resonates with yourself, definitely check it out. Poke around the website. It's tks.world. Now it's time to get into kind of why we're all here. So quick agenda. We're going to go start with Sigil. He's going to talk about his story and entrepreneurship. Then we're going to transition over to Arnav. He's going to talk about his story and how to land an internship. And then Ammielle is going to bring it home with her story and talk a bit more about mindset. So with that, Sigil, the floor is yours. What do you want to tell these students about you and about entrepreneurship in general?
Yo, I'm so excited. I'm just going to share my screen. Yeah, let's go. Cool. I'll just keep this like pretty casual. I think entrepreneurship is definitely something that I have a vast amount of experience in, but it wasn't really intentional at all, which I'll get into like all of these different stories, which is just me just following what I wanted to do, right? I think curiosity does breed entrepreneurship, and just following, your curiosity can lead to awesome stuff. But I'll just do a brief intro. I'm Sigil. You can check out more of my stuff on sigil1.ca. I'm currently a senior at Richmond Hill. I'm taking a gap year from the M&T program at Penn. I also have a YouTube channel, and I'm in the Activate program at TKS. But I think the most important thing that I'm focusing on and building right now is my company called BitSwap, which I started 2 months ago, but since then it's grown to more than $10 million valuation and a team of more than 15 employees. And there's a lot more stuff. But yeah, you can also check it out here. This is bitswap.network. Visit out, check it out. We're also featured in like New York Magazine and Business Insider. But anyways, that was a bit about like kind of the context of what I do. But I actually want to go into like a personal story of myself. This is actually me in grade 3. Like you can see, I'm crying in this, and I'm presenting my like Goosebumps Horrorland. Yeah, that was the series. Yeah, it was a book presentation. But out of everyone in the entire class, I was the only one who cried, and I just had a lot of anxiety growing up and was really shy. But yeah, that was just like, I guess like how I was back then. And I mean, since then it's changed a lot and it was a lot of discomfort to get here. But that was kind of just grade 3 Sigil. And like, to be honest, that was me. For presentations, I couldn't really do that. So I was kind of like that quiet kid who really enjoyed stuff. But like in my time, I would love to explore fiction and stories. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but this is the Captain Underpants series. And these are the two protagonists, George and Harold. I loved Captain Underpants. But what I really liked about it, aside from like the wacky toilet humor, poop jokes and stuff, was like these two protagonists. Like I was like grade 4, grade 5 when I was like reading them and getting really into them. And I saw that, wow, George and Harold, the protagonists, were still grade 5, and they were able to create like their own comic book company, which they sold on the playground. I was like, hey, what's preventing me from doing that? And so me and one of my friends, we just decided like, hey, like I have a lot of like creative abilities, right? You are much more confident than me. Let's work together and like build this out. And I just drew for fun, right? I like during classes, I would just normally do all of my homework, but this time I have like a creative outlet to direct like what I like to do. So I just spent all my time just drawing comics, and then like we just sold it, get like a few hundred in revenue at the time, which I think is a lot for elementary school, like 5th graders. But yeah, unfortunately, it was also shut down by my principal because apparently you cannot sell comic books or sell stuff on school property. But anyways, entrepreneurial journey. I didn't even know what entrepreneurship was at that time. I just like to draw, right? That was what I did. I just drew, and then we sold it, right? But continuing on, it wasn't until high school where I really figured out and learned what exactly entrepreneurship meant. And that actually stemmed from like another story, which the fact that when I went to high school, I saw like everyone around me, and there's one thing that like I realized was the fact that like I was like the worst speaker back then. I couldn't like speak like to the same ability as I am doing right now, right? But I couldn't even do any presentations without reading directly off a script, because my whole life of just being like super shy, I realized that communication was important and a skill. And so having all these presentations and everyone just like so much better than you, I decided to like seek alternatives. And so I turned to making YouTube videos, right? And the thing about YouTube is that I can film my presentation over and over again, right? And I can edit out all my mistakes. But additionally, from just like making the video and presentation, I got to explore parodying my favorite YouTuber. I love watching YouTube. I love like looking at ASAP Science. Here's a picture of me and ASAP Science over here. And yeah, I basically looked at my favorite YouTubers and I figured out like, how can I parody them? Like, how can I like get their ability, their style, and then put it in my own? And so for every project, which you can see some of them, they're like pretty cringy, but I leave them up just to show all of y'all how it looks like. But I just try to replicate it. And in doing so, it required me to upgrade my skill set, upgrade the tools I use. And at the time, I only had like a few hundred in savings, which I then just invested all into a new computer and the Adobe Creative Cloud, which, wow, you guys are so lucky. I think many school boards now offer it for free, but I had to pay like $30 a month for this stuff to get like these suite of tools. But this allowed me to create like anything you see. Like if you look at an Apple commercial, heck, I even made like an Apple commercial on my YouTube channel. I think if we go here, yeah, the iPhone 0, it's over here. Yeah, well, you can do anything, and that's the beauty about it. And so yeah, like these suite of tools that like I invested in increased my ability to create. And it was all just about like, okay, like you have the tools to do it. Now, how can you actually accomplish and get that, right? And so I just started making a bunch of YouTube videos on my channel, right? And every time I just explored a new skill, like, oh, I want to make this. I want to like learn how to do like this effect. And what kind of came out of that was the fact I was just like making videos for fun, right? I just like made like these like parody videos, like these like meme videos. I don't know, like talking about like some of my struggles, but also like some like content and stuff. But what happened was that when you put yourself out there and when you like show yourself and show your skills, right? If you see a video, you're not just there for the content, but you notice something, right? You notice that, hey, wow, maybe Sigil's a really great video editor. And say like thousands of people come and then some people are looking for a video editor, boom, you get to reach out from like someone, and this attracts opportunities. And it's kind of interesting that through my YouTube channel and through my portfolio of like being able to show off my abilities and my skills, I just got requests from different businesses and people that were like, hey, if you want to like do the video stuff. And I also like built up skills, not just in creative part, but also like building websites, which allowed me to introduce myself into coding and building software. And all that congregated into Sigil Digital, which you can actually check out here at Sigil Digital. We also have like a portfolio, but I built it up to like 4 employees, and I just trained my friends on using all of the experience I built up so that they would be able to help other people and help businesses like create videos, create websites. We did all of that. And this kind of ties into like a key point that I think really embodies entrepreneurship, which is just entrepreneurship is about solving problems, right? And problems, you can frame it like this, like a business, like if let's say you're a business, right? And then the business needs a website, right? Oh my God, I don't have a website. How do I do it? That's a problem. And another thing could be like, hey, if they wanted to build out like an application or software, there's just with everyone and everywhere, there's always problems that exist. And I think your role as like an entrepreneur or anyone is to develop like the skills and abilities to solve those problems for them, right? And in the context for like through my video, right, or through like being very good at building out websites, it allows you to then help businesses and different companies solve their problem, which would just be building websites for that, which I did for a long period of time. And I think the question you have now is like, how do you exactly like develop the skills to be able to solve problems? And one way you could do it is, I mean, here's the thing you gotta know is that you can learn anything on the internet. Like, everything is free, right? You can, there's like, if you go online and just search up like Harvard CS50, right? You get like an education from like, that's Harvard level, but it's in like it's like a computer science course where you learn to program. And yeah, the fact is that you're not just limited to school to learn. Like, you can learn anytime. And I think through the internet, you can very much learn pretty much anything. I think the best way to learn actually is, well, it's to follow your curiosity or just do what you like. And I really like this quote by Naval. It's like, what feels like play to you, but looks like work to others? That's like an interesting question. It's like, normally, like if you look at me building my company, you think, oh wow, he's just working a lot, but no, it's just so fun. Like, and I'll tell you my story of like how exactly I came to the company, but I actually started getting into the crypto space through making these NFT meme dojis, right? So NFTs are called non-fungible tokens, and they're kind of like digital cryptocurrency collectibles. And I was like, hey, I like creating things, why not make them? So you can see how I like I parodied like Elon Husky, Mark Zucker Doge, like all of these like Doges and stuff that I made for fun, and like they just sold on like on different marketplaces as people collected them, right? But just by like doing this wacky like cool Doge thing, which you can actually go to cooldoge.com and check it out, and it led me into cryptocurrencies. And it's like, wow, I just like wanted to do it for fun, and it exposed me to this new decentralized social media platform called BitClout, which I got on. And when I got on, it's basically like Twitter, right? So I just made memes on it, but except that everyone has their own coin that you can invest in using the native cryptocurrency. It's a really interesting way. And I just like made a bunch of memes. I got a bunch of my friends to make a lot of memes. And I also, as like an early adopter, I grew myself. And you can see like how like one Sigil token would run you for like around 3,000 US dollars while just like pursuing and doing stuff for fun. Like I was just making memes and stuff, right? I just realized the problem with the platform was the fact that like there's like $250 million that was locked in the platform, right? It's like a social media platform, but you weren't able to withdraw anything directly from the platform, right? You had to go into like these sketchy Discord servers and find someone who would buy that BitClout off of you. And so what I did was that, you know, going back to like being able to solve problems, like I saw this problem, and in my past, I've like developed a lot of abilities and skills that can solve these problems. So I went towards it like, hey, why not just like for a hackathon project, like get together some of my buddies and just, you know, like try and build something that like really like solves it, right? Like so that you can withdraw like hundreds of millions of dollars from the platform. And so you can see here's a picture of me and my co-founders. Actually, we're in my this is my room actually, and you can see how like I have like desk set up. It's like a like makeshift office, but we're just building this like this like platform, right? Which required you to know software and stuff, right? But the fact that we had like that background in software and being able to like create it, and if we didn't know what to do, we can like search it up and figure it out and learn it. But also we could just like find other people who we were connected with, which through like networking, and like get them on board, which is what we did. But yeah, we started like building the product, and yeah, it's been a crazy 6 months, right? Of just not 6 months, 60 days, less than 60 days. Oh my God, like 50 days of just building this thing, right? Like a few weeks ago, I was offered $100,000 for 1% of my company, which is kind of crazy. And yeah, I've like scaled the team to more than 15, and we just been building this out. And yeah, but the key thing behind that is the fact that I was able to like identify a problem, right? Which is, and then be able to apply like my skill sets and ability towards solving that, which is the whole premise behind entrepreneurship. And as an aspiring entrepreneur for yourself, you want to go towards and learn how to build yourself up, right? This quote by Naval again. I'm a huge Naval simp, right? It's a learn to sell, learn to build. If you can do both, you'd be unstoppable. And so like, what exactly does this mean? Well, like learn to build, right? So learn to build is basically, again, like the ability to solve problems, because you can build the solutions to these problems, right? One thing you guys can pick up, which is I think coding is becoming much more democratized now, right? But like, again, I mentioned like Harvard CS50, but there's also this sick website called like edX, right? Free online courses from like MIT, Harvard, Berkeley, right? But they're just like all open source for everyone, because like learning is becoming democratized. And we're at a point where through the internet, like through YouTube, really, you can just search like, how do I build a Zoom application? Maybe you want to build like a tutoring app, right? That allows you to, study with like random peers, right? And just like do and keep each other accountable, right? You just learn how to do that. And that's kind of like concepting what it means to learn to build, like just get good at like being able to, oh, I have an idea. How do I make it? Oh, let me learn how to program. Let me learn how to use like tools like maybe like Shopify, build like an e-commerce store to sell like my hardware product. And then the other part is just learning to sell, right? Like, what does it mean to learn to sell? Well, you can take it literally just by like, oh, how do I sell my product, right? Maybe you have like a software product, which is kind of like a app that you sell, or maybe you have like something like physical, like maybe like a toy or something that you sell. Though I think the most important aspect of just like anyone, and especially if you're a high schooler, is being able to sell yourself, which is like communicating your abilities, right? You can know all this stuff. Like you can be like the best person in the world at building, but if you cannot communicate that at all or show that you can do that, then like it's not as valuable, right? Because then no one will find you and like hire you or like work with you, or you wouldn't be able to apply it directly if your work is never recognized. And so I think I think this is just a really cool skill to pick up, just like, and it's free, I think, with all of your education perks. But yeah, if you can go to like Adobe Creative Cloud, which could give you like Photoshop, Premiere Pro, like After Effects. You can like design anything and design logos for businesses. You can learn how to, market yourself. You can build like cool videos, make YouTube videos, right? And again, like in the example I gave before, which was the fact that like my YouTube channel, it doesn't just showcase like my content, it would showcase like, my abilities in video editing, right? But if I talk about like a programming project, and also show that, hey, I could build this out, and that attracts like opportunities, as it shows that, hey, you can actually do that. And aside from like videos itself, I think having a personal website is really good. And I actually made a blog post on like oneskillaweek.com/website, which showcases you like, it's super easy, like how you can code your first website, which I think is awesome for anyone to go in. And I think the final point that I think is important for anyone who's young and entrepreneurial is just that find like-minded people. You can join a program like TKS. You can also join my Discord. But yeah, like people, if you can look at me and be like, oh wow, you can see I just explained my pathway, kind of like where I got here, right? And people are all pathways that you can take inspiration from to build up your own pathway and legacy to go forward.
That was great. And so yeah, Arnav, while you get your stuff up and ready, I just have one follow-up question for you, Sigil. So that makes a lot of sense. We're solving problems, right? That's really what entrepreneurship is. And there's so many tools and resources that are freely available to allow people to build whatever the thing is that's going to help solve that problem. My big question for you as, our students watching this going into the summer, what advice do you have for students to help them figure out what problems are to solve? Is it just kind of that first quote you had from Naval, like what feels like play to you that looks like work to others? Do you follow your curiosity? Or if I'm a student watching this, how do I know what problems I should be solving? What would you say to that?
Yeah. I think it's important to work on things that you love, right? And this is tying back to the quote, which is like, what is play to you? But that seems like work, right? And I think, the problem that I identified was literally just from making memes on these social platforms. And then you find these problems. And I think, although it's like, it requires like chance and like serendipity and luck, that's like kind of the beauty where it's like, if you follow your passions, you can identify like problems, like maybe like in this niche that you're super passionate about, the authors or content creators that you love and enjoy aren't getting enough exposure, so they're not able to like continue and commit to it, right? They're not able to monetize themselves, so they do it part-time. But I think through following like what you want to do and your own niches, there's always problems out there. I think the world is full of problems, and problems are opportunities for you to go towards. And yeah, I think that's definitely the way to go.
That makes sense. Yeah. Spend time in areas that feel like play to you, and then just be aware of what's happening, identify problems, and figure out a solution on. I love that. Thank you, Sigil, so much. Okay, Arnav, let's get your slides up there, and let's learn a little bit about your story, what you did to land an internship, and what we can do as students listening to this to do the same thing.
Awesome. All right. So my name is Arnav. I'm a grade 9 student. And as you probably saw in the announcement, I am a intern now at IBM. I think the youngest employee of IBM. So let's go, man, world record. So I'm going to talk to you guys about my story and the steps that I took when I was 13 to basically get the skills to land my internship this year. So my story starts when I was 10 years old. So some random gym class, my leg started hurting. And I didn't really think much of it because of the fact that it was gym class, injuries are common, but it started becoming worse, and it was like progressively becoming worse. By the end of the gym class, my leg wasn't even movable. So after school, my parents brought me to the hospital where I spent the remainder of the day. So we initially thought that I was diagnosed with a disease called transient synovitis, which is basically where a body part is inflamed. But that's more common in infants, 0 to 3 years old. So they drew my blood, and they instantly knew that something was wrong, because I had way more blood cells than I was supposed to have, even for someone with transient synovitis. So after 2 or 3 days of additional testing, I was finally given my diagnosis, which was chronic myelogenous leukemia, a rare form of blood cancer. So the next months were obviously really, really hard. My results would get better and better and better, and then they would just regress, and then get better and better and better, and then they would just regress. And so it was this, really annoying cycle. But after about a year, my results start to stabilize. And that's when I kind of came to this realization that definitely changed my life forever. So previously to being diagnosed, I went on a trip to Thailand and India. And there, in addition to seeing, the normal touristy areas that everyone sees, I went to the poorer regions as well, the regions that suffer from extreme poverty. And it was really like nothing else I'd ever seen. Just to name a couple of things, like a couple of examples, there were, amputated children without parents that were relying on the donations of the few tourists that came around for survival. Obviously, they have no education, they don't have healthcare. There were mothers that had to choose which children they would feed and which one would starve. And thinking about that when my results stabilized, I realized like, yeah, I might have cancer, but I still have access to the internet and I live in Canada. And if you have both those things, which, everyone that's either listening on the Zoom or watching the YouTube video has. So historically, that actually makes you part of the global 1%. And, we usually think of the global 1% as people that are like, multi-millionaires, multi-billionaires inheriting all their wealth. But it's actually not the case. We are the global 1%. And what that made me realize, and again, this is, my own personal philosophy, you don't need to adopt this sort of thing. But what I realized, or what I thought about then, was if I've been given all this luck, it was sort of my responsibility now to pay back this debt that I incurred. Because when you compare yourself to, or when I compared myself to the little girl in India that's going to grow up, that also has chronic myelogenous leukemia, but has no access to healthcare, has no access to education, spends the better part of her days getting water, even that water is dirty. It puts things into perspective because you think like, what did I deserve to get so much more than she did, right? Like, why do I deserve to survive and she doesn't? And the answer is, it's just luck, right? We were just embryos that were born in significantly different parts of the world in families that have significantly different incomes and social situations. And so then the philosophy that it is a risk that the choice to make an impact on the world kind of vanished in my head. It was now a responsibility because I had to pay back the luck that I've been given. And so I was like super, super motivated, right? I was like super passionate, but I didn't know what to do because obviously solving these really, really big problems is highly ambiguous, right? Like no one's done it before. You can't just go on YouTube and search up, how to solve extreme poverty. And so I joined just like Sigil and Ammielle. And there I learned about a couple of things, but the main two things that really, really helped me on sort of my journey and that apply specifically to getting an internship are your network and your knowledge. So the first thing that you need for whatever goal it is, whether it's an internship, whether it's solving a problem, is just having a really, really strong network. So your network is the people that you know and the depth of the relationships you have with these people. And there's a couple of reasons why network is super important. The first is that you get access to a bunch of serendipitous opportunities, which is basically where you are given something that you don't intentionally work for. And then, a lot of the time, these opportunities are career changing, life changing, super unique and valuable experiences. The second thing, and arguably more important thing, is knowledge. So fundamentally, when you're learning anything new, whether it's from, a teacher, a video, a blog, it's all coming from another person. So naturally, if you want to get the highest quality information, you want to skip the fluff, right? Talk to the people that are making breakthroughs in the industry or people that have been working there for decades. And that's really how you will be able to get the highest quality knowledge. And a superpower that you have right now is your youth. So admittedly, like if you were just grateful and if you're willing to put in the work, a lot of smart people will be willing to sacrifice their time for you. And again, gratitude is a must-have because, if they're smart, which is probably the reason why you're reaching out to them in the first place, they have hundreds of other things they could be doing, but instead they're choosing to help you. And so, be grateful, keep them updated with progress, keep them updated with the action items and whatever. But these people will be able to help you by condensing their knowledge and experiences into a series of conversations with them. So whether it's, learning how to mitigate failures, resources that help them get to where they are, or other people that taught them things, it's really just about transitioning where you are to where you want to be, which is where they are. And so now I'm gonna double down a bit more on the knowledge part though. And so the thing with knowledge, I'm also a Naval simp. Me and Sigil have that in common. Something that Naval said, which I think perfectly illustrates part of our privilege at least, is we basically have access to humanity's collective understanding of the universe at our fingertips. And I think when trying to go super, super deep into certain domains, there's no better way to do this than by getting like knowledge from the internet. A good heuristic to think about is if you want something really bad, like if you want to get an internship at a software company or you want to do a marketing position, a communications position, whatever it may be, school probably isn't enough because the high school curriculum is meant to be generalized. And even if you get like a 99s and 100s, there's 100,000 other people in the world that are getting 99s and 100s. Very few of them actually score internships at the companies that they want to work at. And so it has to be something deeper than that. Companies are looking more so for extreme depth in these areas. And so what you really, really want to do is leverage this tool that you have, which is the internet, unlimited knowledge. And there's two ways, or there's two strategies that I recommend you use to essentially sift through the ambiguity, because the vastness of the internet is both something that will tremendously benefit you and something that can seem a bit daunting because you don't know where to start. So the first thing is develop a meta learning map. A meta learning map is basically figuring out what you need to learn before you learn it, sort of analogous to a curriculum at high school. So what you want to do is think of your goal and then just work backwards. So find the prerequisites of this goal, and then the prerequisites of those prerequisites, and then the prerequisites of those prerequisites, and just keep on going on until you find, or until you're back at where you currently are with your level of knowledge and your level of skills. And so by doing this, you'll essentially be able to chunk the super, super ambitious goal that you have into a series of smaller and manageable steps. The biggest problem with this, suggestion that I hear is that people end up figuring out that it takes a really, really long time to accomplish their goals. Another good heuristic to think about is if this skill is actually in demand, which is the reason why you'd be getting an internship, not just anyone can do it. It requires effort, because if anyone could do it, everybody would do it. And there wouldn't be a demand anymore because obviously the supply meets the demand. And so it's going to be difficult, but if you develop that, the final step for you is just having a willingness to fail. So you already have the network, right? So you already have the opportunities. You already have the people that can help you through the tough times. And you already have your meta learning map. So you have the curriculum and you know exactly what you need to learn. Now it's just a matter of actually putting in the effort and having a willingness to fail. Because when it comes to failure and learning and growth, you will only learn, you will only grow from failure. And I think that the way that you deal with failure is actually what will determine whether you're successful in achieving your goals or unsuccessful. Because it's bound to happen. But the important thing to remember is that results are not linear, they're exponential. And so people will spend a lot of time, a lot of focus on these roadblocks, and they get demotivated along the process because, they're not making progress. But the thing to remember is if you persevere and you continue to work on it and you continue, focusing until you figure it out, that's where the actual value lies. Like that's where you're actually going to learn. That's where you're actually going to grow. And as I said previously, results are exponential and not linear. So you shouldn't expect to, get X% done every single day. Instead, you should expect to get like negative 10X% done every day. And then one day it's going to be like 100X, because your growth is completely derived the way that you're going to be dealing with these things. And with that being said, my departing words, if you have the network, meaning you have all the opportunities, you have the meta learning map, meaning you know exactly what you need to know, then the ball is now in your court. It's completely your decision whether you're willing to put in the effort. And if you do, I can promise you that the fruits of your labor will pay off.
Arnav, man, that was legit. I'm happy you talked about a lot of that. It's one thing that I don't think is talked about as much as it could be in our current education system, just the importance and the value of a network, right? Like there's some crazy statistics out there that super high percentage of jobs that get filled at most companies are jobs that are filled through an employer's network without even the posting going live, or even if it goes live, it still gets filled kind of through the back door. It's oftentimes that cheesy quote, as cheesy as it is true, right? Your network is your net worth. I love the idea of the meta learning map, kind of working backwards, engineering towards that big goal, putting it down in chunk size pieces. But I don't think I heard Arnav you talk about the specific example with IBM. So like in a minute, how was it that your network allowed you to tap into this opportunity? Was it somebody you knew through your time at TKS? Was it just like, where was that connection from your network to IBM?
Yeah, that was pretty funny. So it actually had to do like 100% with my network. So a couple of months back, like I think November of 2019, I emailed a recruiter at IBM. So I had spoken previously at the IBM Evoke conference because of TKS. And there I met like a lot of IBM people. I started to understand more so of their culture, their values, the stuff they're working on. And I was instantly hooked, right? Like I instantly knew I wanted to work here. And so what I did was I was just talking to a bunch of people from IBM, and we had a couple of conversations. I kept the recruiter up with progress, but nothing really happened until a couple of weeks ago when she emailed me and she was like, I would love to have you as an intern here. We're opening up positions now. And so I looked at the page, and it turns out that the role that I was qualified for was actually already filled up, because they had received over like 500 applications in less than like a week. And so she sent me like a private, unique link that allowed me to continue with the application and basically funneled me through the entire application progress or process. And that allowed me to score the internship. And so, yes, without my good friend Diana, none of this would have ever occurred.
Fantastic, man. I'm proud of you for taking the initiative to make that happen. Okay. I mean, yeah, we're going to finish strong with your story. So take it away. What can the students listening to this do to develop a mindset that will open up a world of opportunity to them? And what did you do to do the same?
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to break this down into 5 key, kind of more actionable steps you can take.
Cool.
I'll just share my screen now. So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I am Ammielle. I'm 16 from the Southern Ontario region. I'm really passionate about science communication, and I love to, showcase my work through articles and videos. I've been posting on YouTube and Medium for months now, which recently led me to having my article published in Forbes, which feel free to check out later if you're interested. But throughout the year, I've been writing about everything from protein engineering to DNA, digital data storage, and biological circuits. And I've been filming a lot of my takeaways for what I've been learning at TKS and condensing that into short videos about my action items and takeaways, which has allowed me to showcase my progress and work. I'm also really interested about the intersection of biology and technology. So that's what you have in the corner over there. But I'm just trying to see how we can drive sustainable development. And it's something I can see myself pursuing long term, a passion I was able to find through TKS. And then where you see the mother is kind of what I've been working on more recently at an organization where our goal is ultimately to prevent extreme blood loss after birth. And our organization is called Ending Maternal Mortality. And we're looking to prevent this condition by training birth attendants as well as distributing medication and empowering community members. And finally, the little tube you see there is something I've been working on most recently at TKS, which is a solution to, overall bring bioprinters closer to reality and really accelerate the development and have these filaments. So it's part of everything I've been doing at TKS. And without further ado, I just thought I'd get started. My number one tip overall is really a reiteration of everything that's been said so wonderfully by Sigil and Arnav, but it really is to figure it out. During the first wave of the pandemic, I was stuck at home and I was really bored and I started to learn to code. I knew it was a critical skill. No one really around me knew how to code either. It was just something I thought I should figure it out. And I did. And this is a skill, for example, that is translated really well into what I do at EMM, which, as I mentioned, is Ending Maternal Mortality, where my role within their whole organization is legal development. And at 16, I do not have a background in law whatsoever. I'm not qualified, probably not really qualified policies or make any formal changes, but I really have been learning as much as possible about data protection and information security. And even without, let's say, years and years of experience, I've been able to meet with incredible lawyers and contacts who have been able to help me and offer me so much support. So this does go along with building out your network, but it really starts from within, or it can start right now. I would say, to break this down a little more, I would encourage you to find a topic or skill that you would want to learn about. You have the time over the summer, so just figure out what maybe outcome you want to drive, where you see yourself by the end of the summer break, and determine really what you need to learn, as Arnav had mentioned with the map. And then really follow tutorials, watch videos, complete courses, and I promise Google will become your best friend. And especially, I think this skill is really relevant in today's day and age, is that we really have no clue what skills will be needed in 10, 20 years. Maybe there'll be robots everywhere and what we're learning right now just isn't applicable. So you want to have the ability to learn and adapt. And I've heard this countless times, so just thought I'd squeeze it in there. Yeah, thanks to the internet, everything we want to know is at our fingertips. So it's really about how we train our figured out mindset, how we build resiliency and tenacity and become resourceful. That is the most important thing, in my opinion. But next would be to build as much as possible. A mistake I made while I was learning to program is that I literally just did tutorial after tutorial, course after course. I gathered dozens of certificates, but what was I doing with them? I wasn't putting it into practice. I wasn't building anything. And I think that's also the pillar of TKS's approach to really guiding us through what we're building throughout the years, is do and reflect and feedback and do again, kind of cycle, where it's really about building projects and growing your portfolio. I think this is also a way in which TKS has brought a lot of value through challenges, and where we have the ability to develop our presentation, our writing, design, ideation, collaboration, research skills. It's really being able to hone on these abilities that are really allowing us to put it to use and put it into practice. And not only does this help you, get that foundational understanding, but it is like about building out your portfolio and showing other people what you're made of and establish credibility. And this was particularly helpful, or something I wanted to put into practice when writing articles. So I was writing weekly articles for a couple of months, and then I was able to send that out to a bunch of publishers and publications in the synthetic biology field. I was meeting with people, and as I was building my network, I was able to show them my content, and I was like, here's what I've been learning. And other like forms of emails, I was keeping them updated on everything I was doing. And I guess it is a part of establishing my credibility and allowing me to get an opportunity to publish my work in Forbes, to show other people what I can do. And it really is about building publicly. So what I want you to take from this is that whatever you're building right now, even if it's just your class notes, even if it's just, something you're drawing or you've been putting a lot of effort in, I want you to just get it out there and to be creative and really exercise those building or training skills. Or just be proud of what you're doing and improve your communication skills around building as well. So that is also very similar to what has been previously said, but it really just want to put an emphasis on that. Next is to fail fast. I love this mindset. Probably one of my favorite things about TKS as well is that it's the importance of really getting your work out there. So as I mentioned, you want to build, and then you want to get as much feedback as possible. I reflect on what you're doing and see how that works for you. Over the summer, I realized I was not like making it much progress. I wasn't building anything. My skills had been kind of stagnating for a while. I would have gotten feedback from, let's say, advisors or other people around me who did have a programming background, who could have helped me say, well, here's how you could have made this more efficient, or here's another project for you to look at. So it is really about getting constant feedback and reiterating on your work. And another case that this has helped me was as I was preparing for a couple of virtual conferences and talks in the last weeks, where I would stay up until like midnight just trying to get as many versions of a speech or a talk out. And it was lots of long nights, but it was really valuable overall because I was able to get so much input and until it made me feel like something I was proud of. And yeah, looking back, those first YouTube videos and Medium articles were kind of cringy because I really wanted to get that out there as quickly as possible, but it allowed me to really improve upon my skills over the long term. And then I put a muscle here because that's how I love to think about it, where you are really training yourself and you're developing a love for errors, and that skills and habits are like a muscle. So you want to work on them every day. You want to put, strain, you want to embrace failure, and then use maybe next time your hesitancy or your doubts as a trigger to action and to produce better output overall. And finally have a something you can be proud of, essentially. Fourth would be to ask good questions. So this also goes along with what's been mentioned about networking and really having the ability to communicate, but it's around like being humble where you're at right now. So of course, most of us will be high school students if we're interested in seeing how we can prepare for the summer and make the most out of it. But we need to acknowledge that there's so much for us to learn, that when we do go out and meet people, or when we do have these skills or when we have the opportunity to connect with others and are surrounded by especially high performing people, that we can ask any question, and that we should really be taking as many opportunities as possible to learn from the people we connect with. So I would say that asking good questions has been super pivotal in TKS and overall for me, where I want to make sure that these are questions I can be vulnerable about and say, I have no clue what the answer to this is. Can you maybe help me figure it out? Can you, provide some guidance here and there? So I definitely want to double down on that. There's so many different ways you can formulate your questions that'll help you get the answers you want. But it really is about like keeping an open mind and knowing that there's so much you don't know, and that's okay. And that's what you're here to change. And finally, I want to go over the importance of high standards. I've also been super fortunate to be surrounded by really incredibly high standards and work ethics and performances through my year at TKS, and even my work at EMM now, where I'm working with other high school students, but just the effort they put in and how well they perform really encourages me to not take shortcuts, to avoid cutting corners, and to really put my creative work forward, to really feel like I'm contributing to something. So I'd say as much as this year has been like isolating and, we're kind of working on our own, it's hard to connect with others. Overall, I want to say that you want to surround yourself with people who are there to support you and people you can learn from as well, because excellence does rub off. You will be able to adopt those high standards as well. And you become the people you want to work with. So what do high standards look like for you? Identify those, build upon those, and really over the next 2 months in the summer, be sure to know what you want to look like and how you're going to work there by setting the example. Even if it is just seeing what, let's say, the top CEOs or the top pioneers in certain industries are doing, learn from them and see what maybe mindsets or habits you can take from them. And watching this webinar is a great first step because you've been willing to sit here and learn from us. And I'm sure there are so many more people online you can learn from, and as well as people in real life. So be sure to ask good questions, be sure to embrace failure, to build as much as possible to get your foot out the door. And lastly, or most importantly, I guess, figure it out because you got this. And now how are you going to make the most of the next months?
Ammielle, that was awesome. What a great way to finish it up. You know what? One point, and I know you like drilled down on it already, but I think it deserves that much more attention. I think it was point number 2 for you, like build as much as possible in a public. So for the educators watching this, they may be familiar with the name George Couros. He's an awesome Canadian educator, somebody I was just talking to not that long ago. And we were talking about the same thing where most of the stuff that we're having students do, like the work they're doing within class that we assign to them, is kept within the firewall that is the education system, right? Like all the stuff they submit to Google Classroom, that stays within Google Classroom. And more often than not, they lose that when they leave high school. So when employers are searching for, hey, maybe do I want to hire this student for an internship? Do I want to hire this adult for their job? They're not going to see any of the amazing work that your kids did within your class because that's protected by your IT firewall within your district and is probably destroyed after they leave. So it's important for students to be building things and building things in public so that when someone does search for Sigil, for Ammielle, for Arnav, they're going to see the amazing stuff that these kids are doing. So I can't highlight that enough. Guys, all 3 of you did a fantastic job. And obviously, we talked about TKS, the Knowledge Society, a few times throughout, and there were a few questions that came up from the Q&A that I tackled as you guys were talking. But since that happened, I'm just going to quickly share my screen because for all the educators that are listening, you should know that as part of our first season, the Competencies Without a Classroom podcast, we actually interviewed one of the co-founders of the Knowledge Society. His name is Naveed. It's a fantastic episode to listen to get kind of a better understanding of why the Knowledge Society was started and exactly what it entails. And educators, for you guys listening, students may be less excited, but we're actually turning all of our season 1 Competencies Without a Classroom episodes into lesson plans. So your students can listen to a few different clips from each episode. So then we built in reflection prompts for them to reflect on in their portfolio. So keep an eye out for those. Since we have a couple minutes left and I've tackled all the Q&A questions, I'm just going to throw some rapid fires to our panelists and thank them again for making time in their busy afternoon, right? These young people are in school as well. So Sigil, let's bring it back to you. Let's say I'm a student watching this recording right now, and I want to try to sneak in my application before the May 31st deadline for this upcoming fall term of the Knowledge Society. What's one piece of advice you could give somebody who's filling out their application for the first time?
I think be authentic on it. Show yourself. Like, you don't have to necessarily only talk about tech. I know my friends, heck, they talk about their video games and whatever, or like whatever they're deeply interested in. I think that's one of the questions, like teach about something, right? You don't need to teach them about something that you think they want. Just go teach them about anything you're super deeply passionate about. And I think the insight there is also just do things that, reflect yourself and reflect your true self, and don't try to like exactly conform to what you expect others want you to be. Yep. That's a general advice I follow.
Yeah, that's a great answer. From everything I've heard, authenticity and curiosity are going to go a long way with these applications. They want to know that you're curious. You don't have to already be a tech expert at all, right? You just have to be curious and motivated and want to learn. I think that's what TKS is looking for. Arnav, here's a question for you. So you've learned a lot of life skills in your early 14 years, right? What's a life skill that you weren't taught in high school or in your traditional education so far, but wish that all students were?
I think it's more so the depth of the things that we learn as opposed to the actual things themselves. So, like high school is supposed to be like generalized, right? So we learn about a variety of topics, but we don't really learn about any topics in depth. It's more so in breadth. And so I think the number one thing for me has been going like really, really deep into programming. So I actually like that process that I outlined for coding and stuff. I basically did when I was 13. The past like year, I've been mainly working on like the Activate projects, which rarely involve coding. But when I went into what's called the ICS this year, which is computer science in high school, because of my cancer, I couldn't do gym. So I just went for the grade 10 computer science. And it was pretty simplistic. And so I think like having a bigger focus on certain skills would be really beneficial.
Okay, yeah. So let high school expose you to stuff maybe at the surface level, but then for the stuff that really sticks out to you, kind of go deep on it. I mean, I'm going to finish off with you. You made another point that, similar to building in public, I think is important to talk about, where you have to have that mentality to do over plan, right? Like you were talking about, you can do all the research in the world, but you don't actually learn until you do the thing, you fail from it, reflect on it, and try it again. So for a student who's listening to this, they're about to publish that first post on Medium, they're about to write that first line of code, but they're afraid. What advice would you give somebody who's afraid to hit publish for the first time?
I would say that it's really important to acknowledge, or to at least accept, that is your start. Just come to terms with that your first article or video will probably not be that good, but it should rather be exciting rather than nervous, where you just know, okay, once I get this out of the way, I can like make more progress, or I can like send this over to someone, get their feedback, and as quick as that, or as soon as possible, we'll be able to get their input and improve. So I think it's for me, it's been the prospect of like improvement that has guided me towards like getting my work as quickly as possible and to showcasing what I'm capable of. And I would assume the same being for many students here who are eager to just get into to improve. And we know progress doesn't happen overnight, that you don't go from 0 to 100. So it really is these small steps that allow you to make the most of your journey. And these small steps start right now. So that's exciting.
It's a great note to end it on. I mean, done is better than perfect. And to Arnav's point, it's not going to be linear. Like every day you're going to notice a little bit, but one of these days you are going to recognize that exponential hockey stick type growth, and you're going to see all the fruits of your labor that you put into this really pay off. So guys, recognizing the time right now, I just want to thank everyone who joined us today for learning a bit more about these amazing young standout students, their stories, their actual tips about how your students can make the most of this summer. Thanks everyone for being here. Arnav, Sigil, Ammielle, you guys crushed it.